that Belize has decided to use, at least in the short to medium term, for doing its greenhouse gas inventory for RED and for forests. And you saw an example of this yesterday running in FLINT Pro. And I'd like to, of course, thank all of the partners here. This is not my work. This is the policy work from Belize and the work of some staff from Mullion and the great work of the remote sensing teams at TerraPulse, and of course, support from the World Bank. So this comes a little bit more to the issue of the remote sensing products than the integration. But Belize clearly had a policy need, and that was to come up with a good systematic approach to estimate emissions and removals from forest loss, forest gain, and forest degradation. And those are going to be pretty common across many of the participants on this call, so I'm not telling you anything new there. Now, Belize spent a little while using different mapping processes, different sampling approaches. The problem they were finding was that they were getting inconsistent estimates depending on which consultant or interpreter was doing that data, and it was very difficult to try to estimate the changes through time. And so after a few years of trying lots of different methods, they really came to a fairly inconclusive result, sorry. So what they've done is they've gone back to step one. And step one was to say, well, let's see what we can do in terms of get a product out fast and then start improving it. So get a really nice dense time series of remote sensing information that can try to get to our forest gain, forest loss, and forest degradation, use that, and then every year keep on going. And so their decision there was to go with a commercial provider to do that mapping. In this case, it's TerraPulse. And TerraPulse are taking Belize specific inputs and turning those into maps. The maps are then being put into the FLINT, but again, they're actually getting put through FLINT Pro as the commercial sort version, allowing them to immediately move to an approach 3 tier 2 approach so that they can rapidly get those emissions and carbon analyses and then move on. There's a bit of pressure on this one, and that's a good sign. So it was basically a, can you do this in 4 months question? And so what was being asked was, can you produce activity data or forest cover maps from 1984 to 2020 annually for the key criteria, some land cover maps, and also the input data. So this input data in particular, the LiDAR and the forest inventory and the local land cover maps, that's all specific to Belize, and that is being used to develop this activity data by TerraPulse. So that's the main part of the work. And then when those maps are completed, they will be pulled into FLINT Pro and integrated with the country-specific tier 2 emissions factors to produce those results. This is just a very simple example, a flow diagram of the process for producing those cover maps. I won't go into this too much because we're not really here to talk about cover maps, but the key point to remember here is exactly what we raised yesterday. On the left-hand side, we have our tabular data, we have satellite information, and we have GIS data. That's going into a series of algorithms, in this case machine learning, to pull out a whole lot of high resolution maps to step through. And on the right hand side, we have our products. We have our maps of where crops are, we have our maps of where forests are, and it's those pieces of information that are going into the FLINT. And so this is the type of thing you end up seeing, obviously a nice high resolution map, and then it gives you a nice map like this that says when forest has been lost, but most importantly, also when it's been gained and then lost and regained or degraded. And so it has a really nice ability to do that time series pattern. And that's remembering the key message from day 2, which was think like a piece of land. You need to think like you're a piece of land and understand that activity tracking through time so that you can then estimate the movals from every single individual little piece of land across the landscape and sum it up.